if the panelists know who they are, so if you could all come up and I'll introduce them. We have, in no particular order, Matthew Avery, who's the Director of Thatcham Research in the UK, Pierre Castin, who's President of Euro NCAP, Reinhard Kolke, of course, from the ADAC, who's Director of their Technical Services, and Thomas Lukaswitz from Ford, and Andre Seek, who's where we have to seek Andre. There he is. He's coming. Who, of course, is a former Chairman President of Euro NCAP and who's Head of Automotive Engineering Division. So, Andre is en route, and I have some questions. Can I say, does that still work? You still hear me? Yes. Great. So, my first victim is, appropriately enough, from the ADAC is Reinhard Kolke. And we particularly want to look at the consumer angle, since the ADAC is such a notable consumer protection organization here in Germany, across Europe. So looking at the findings of the survey, we see that many consumers believe that automation is already there. But we know that's not the case. So what do you think automobile clubs can do, like the ADAC, to fill this gap of understanding amongst consumers?
Yeah, when I read the survey, I was really, really confused because 70% of the people believe an automated driving car is already available. And now we have seen there is no availability of automated driving cars. So what do these people think? Half of these people think automated driving cars means I have to be aware and I have from time to time drive with the car. And the other part of the people said, I believe I can do something very different. And now the question is really, what do we have to do? And if we look back, we talked a lot about SAE levels, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm sure it's not possible to explain to consumer what is an SAE level. And therefore, we discussed very close with our partners what should we tell to the consumers. And today we learned there is an assisted driving mode, there will be an automated driving mode, and there will be an autonomous driving mode. So assisted, automated, and autonomous. And what we have to explain with FIA clubs, with consumer protection organizations, what we have to explain to the consumer is that we are still on the assisted driving mode scheme. And we should not make it more complicated to say you are now on level 2 or 3. The question is, what is the liability for the driver on the one hand? If the driver is in assisted mode, the driver is fully liable for what the car is doing. But if the car will sooner or later get into, let's say, some automated driving stop-and-go modes, then as well there is a need to explain when liability is from manufacturer side and when liability is for the driver itself. So we as consumer protection clubs, what we have to do, we have to make complex things more simple. And what we should do is we should speak about 3 driving modes, which is assisted, which is automated and autonomous. And based on this scheme, it will make much more easier for us to explain the best available technologies as Euro NCAP did today.
Great. Just to explain to the audience, so I'm going to take one round of questions and then we'll open it to the floor. So don't worry, you will get your opportunities to jump in. So next I'm going to ask Thomas. The results we saw today show that current systems can often effectively help the driver, but not 100% of the time. So how can we increase the reliability, effectiveness of these systems? And what do you see from an industry perspective, the greatest challenges ahead?
First of all, I wouldn't agree to the wording reliable. Everything what we are handing over to our customers and the vehicle you can experience later today is fully tested, signed off, is reliable from our point of view. We run through the complete development view, which means from system, subsystem up to vehicle level. We tested the sensing in CAE, in real world. We did hundreds of thousands of kilometer driving.
Maybe effective is a better word.
Okay, but let me further explain how we came to the status where we are today. And that is exactly what, and I think I'm quite happy to see that exactly that was our goal, to have this balance between system support and assisted system, as we still call it in SE Level 2, and the driver's responsibility. And I think this came out of this result, that we found exactly the balance, that we have this collaboration between both systems. And going forward, what needs to be done as a next step is definitely, as we stated, we will go into Level 4 in 2021. Which means we are on track to launch our fleet, and we introduced also the place. We started in Miami, and we will introduce further cities later this year, where we have a complete different, I would say, business model and systems level and maturity and technical challenges. And this is less a kind of end customer product. It's more a transportation as a service, what we are providing. And in this context, definitely we see the passenger or the drivers become a passenger. This is the next level we are introducing. And what is in between is definitely a huge challenge to all of us. That means this SA Level 3 is something we clearly see as a huge challenge, and we are researching on that area. We are contributing and participating in European Union funded research project, L3 Pilot, for example, to exactly answer questions about how to re-engage the driver and how to get the driver back into the driving task again.
Okay. So now, Andre, we've seen from the results some differences in the systems, but Euro NCAP, because these are early days, baby steps here, have not graded the performance. What do you think is needed to move in that direction? Particularly, what data would be needed to be able to safety rate these technologies? And what are the challenges to obtain that data?
Yes, right, David. What we have seen in the last slide from Richard is that we try to find out what about the technical capability of a car, but a very, very, very important part in the assessment, in the grading, is the HMI. And HMI is not the human-machine interface, it is the human-machine interaction. It is the interaction between the human being and the car, the technology. And this is, for me, the biggest and crucial safety element in Level 2, or assisted driving. What we are assessing here, it is the user of a driver aware about his role? Yeah? We have to avoid over-reliance and so on. And in the technical testing, we have all the tools available. We only have to do the right tests. For human-machine interaction, there is no methodology available at the moment, but we need it in order to understand how a user understands his role. At the moment, we did the first steps with naming and what is written in the handbook and so on. These are some hints in our assessment if the driver is aware what he has to do. But we need a methodology, and we are developing this methodology within your NCAP in order to have a very broad and good assessment of the human-machine interaction. And the human-machine interaction for Level 2 assisted driving is different than the human-machine interaction for Level 3, where we have automated driving. But there's also an important part of the human-machine interaction.
And the data issues, how are you going to get what you need?
Yeah, okay, you want to know more, I see. Yes, the question is, the question is, we cannot put a dummy into a car and measure something in the dummy, how the dummy interact with the machine. We need human beings. We need test subject, human beings, driving with the car, and try to find out what is the understanding, what is the mental model of a human being, and is the mental model in good reliance, in good fitment with the technical capability, or is there a big mismatch when the mental model of a user is completely different compared to what the car can deliver from the technical point of view? Then this is a high safety risk, and this is what we are looking for. We are looking for what is a good application in terms of safety, or what is a less good application in terms of safety. And this, for level 2, is a mismatch between what the human beings, the driver, believe what a car can deliver and what the car really can deliver.
Yeah, great. So now definitely move to a more provocative perspective, which is his normal role.
Of course.
Matthew Avery, from the Director of Thatcham Research. We're a lot of the discussion today is focusing on the risks of partly automated assisted driving. And we've had some examples of vehicle manufacturers claiming that with autopilot, or whatever term you want to use, activated, the vehicle is going to be significantly safer than normal driving. What do you think about those kind of claims in the current setting? And do you think that this can be demonstrated? And also, if that was the case, how do you think the insurance industry would respond to that technology? Can we look forward to the prospect of insurance discounts? So I'm provoking you as well as you may provoke others. But
absolutely.
It's poke and be poked.
Absolutely. I can hear that. Well, firstly, I think we have to recognise that we have to do this work in partnership with the vehicle manufacturers. I mean, we don't have the sort of 65% reduction in occupant casualties without manufacturers doing the work that they do to support what we have. So we recognise that we need to do it in partnership. I think manufacturers have to be responsible in the way they sell these products, and therefore the use of terminology which suggests the vehicle is more capable than it actually is not helpful. And I'm pleased to hear from Richard that a couple of manufacturers are reviewing how they sell the vehicles, because as part of our process we often look at both the marketing material but also the handbook of the vehicle, and the handbooks are normally absolutely correct in saying you are driving, this is an assisted system, the vehicle will not take over for you. Whereas the marketing material may be selling a dream, and I don't think that's always very helpful. We have to take the consumer on the journey with us. And a lot of consumers don't understand what AEB is, let alone what this, level 2, the assisted technology is. And the results of some of the surveys say that sort of 18% of people are willing to take a nap with today's current systems doing the driving, because they really don't understand what they can and can't do. So I think we have to understand we're working in partnership, and I think manufacturers over-claiming is an issue, and I think we have to make sure that it's very clear that we tell the consumer what the systems will do and what the systems won't do. And I think ultimately these systems used correctly will drive reductions in crashes, and the insurers, going back to that question, will reflect that, because if there are fewer crashes, there's a lower risk, they will reflect that and encourage the use of these systems. But the use of these systems comes from the manufacturer as much as anything, and the manufacturer has to make clear to the customer what their obligations are.
Great. So we'll take that as a firm commitment of insurance reductions coming soon, once the consumer understands. So finally, in this round, we go to the current president, Pierre Castin. I mean, this is a very sort of significant day for Euro NCAP, venturing into this whole new terrain of evaluating the pathway towards automation. And we expect it to be a fast development. We're hearing about L3, for those who understand it, L3 systems and connected driving just around the corner. So what is the next step for Euro NCAP, and how are we going to meet these challenges?
It's a challenge, I think, for all the people of Euro NCAP. I think we have done today, the first step is what customer can expect from the vehicle today. The second one is, as André said, can we standardize or promote best practice in HMI, for example? I don't know. It's perhaps more promoting the best practice. There is something also that we don't discuss a lot, is what we consider that operational design domain. That is to say, we have to clarify, because all cars are not, and the consumer must know that some cars work on very tiny space and the other can work everywhere. That is to say, this information must be very clear. And after, we have also to look at what we call monitoring of the driver behavior, attention assist system and so on, that is to say, because we need that for level 2. Perhaps in the future we don't need any more monitoring of the driver because we have no more driver. Minimum risk maneuver, I think, is something that we have seen some vehicles today go to standstill and the other cut the system out and let you do the things. In our roadmap, we have also something for the future concerning V2X, because when we V2X,
yeah.
and I think when we speak about automation, we need perhaps more information from the outside and V2X. And perhaps Euro NCAP is not in a position today to push or pull administration to change the roads and so on, but perhaps what we can do is to work with OEMs for the first V2X, like car-to-car connection, that is to say, at least for cut-in, cut-out, it should be perhaps interesting to know that the car in front of the car who is in front of you is stopped. That is to say, it could be a danger on the road. That is to say, car-to-car. And we have a big job concerning motorbike. And perhaps the future, it should be car-to-motorbike connection somewhere. And I think we have still some job to do in the future. But as André say, we have still to develop our protocols to be more objective in our judgment. If we want to have a grading of the system, today it's difficult to say that one is better than the other. I think one is different than the other, but the strategy of the manufacturer are different from one to the other. We clearly see the different strategy between Tesla, DS, and the other. But what is the best one? I don't know. What we have to do is to explain to the consumer that the strategy is different and they are not to trust 100% in the car. They have to be aware that they are still the driver of the car.
Good. Well, thanks to all the panelists. I hope we've covered a lot of ground. But now it's your turn from the floor. So we have a little over 20 minutes or so. Sorry for the background noise. It might start making your stomachs rumble and think about lunch. But this is an opportunity to ask questions of our panelists. Also, I think if Richard and Michiel are somewhere around, in case I can see Michiel. I don't know where Richard is there somewhere, maybe, or not. But anyway, there are some roving mics. Here he is. So, are there any questions, interventions? Yes, if you can say who you are. And actually, from here, you're all kind of in darkness there, so at least I know that's a guy.
Okay, my name is Stefan Schneider. I am heading a master course of Advanced Driver Assistance Systems close here to Kempten. And I wonder if your results, your very first results, are showing or promising that the levels as they are installed and they have their history, because from a production view, it makes sense to start these 5 levels with lane keeping and ACC and so on and combine them and so forth. But your results show clearly that one might think to restructure these levels or to make at least a review on these levels, and see it more from the HMI perspective, assisted automation and clearly automatic driving. So what is your comments on that?
Do you want to take that?
I would
Sure.
yes, of course, I would like to answer this question. And on a technical level, we have to understand these SIE levels, because when we don't understand what is the task of the driver, or how the driving task is shared between the machine and the human being, then we are absolutely lost. So we need, for our technical understanding as engineers, what kind of level is it? But this is too complex for communication. For communication, we need very simple messages. And as Dr. Kolke said, 3 is very often the right number. 3 things you maybe can keep in your mind, and it is assisted. So I am responsible, but I am helped by the machine. It is automated. So for one time, the car is doing the driving task, and in another situation, I'm doing the driving task, and finally this is autonomous driving. Maybe this is the right word, where we have no driver at all. And this, you have to understand that one is a technical understanding you need, and there's no change. But for communication, we have to be very simple in order to keep the message clear.
And to make it simple more complicated, I learned from my colleague, if we make it simple and say we have assisted driving mode, automated driving mode, we have to be aware that in future there will be a kind of hybrid car. So a car which can be driven assisted or automated. And again, human-machine interaction should make clear in which mode is the driver now going on. Yeah. So hybridization not only with respect to the propulsion, but to driver assistance systems as well.
And this different modes available in one car leads to another future safety problem. This is mode confusion. On a highway, on a motorway, I am driving on level 3, and on an urban road, maybe I'm only assisted on a level 2. And the user have to understand that in one case he can read or watch his YouTube video, and in another case he is responsible and he is only assisted. Yes, and when the level 2 systems become more and more or better and better, so the interaction between the machine and the human being is less often, then this creates also an over-reliance and a misunderstanding. And the industry have to do the right thing in order to keep these human-machine interaction clear to the customer, clear to the driver. And we as Euroncap want to help that this is a clear message and a clear human-machine interaction design.
I think that's very interesting, because you're not necessarily talking about 3 different kinds of cars. You're talking about 3 in 1.
Yes, 3 in 1.
And then the transitions between are very challenging in themselves. And
right.
Okay. There must be more, I hope. Gosh, everyone's very reserved. Is anyone? Or hungry? Yeah. Is there any? Are there any people from the media here? Journalists want to ask? Yes. Yeah. I think a mic is on its way.
Okay, I'm Søren, I'm a journalist from Denmark.
Great.
Okay, I just want to take a step further on the transition between the assisted mode and the automated mode in the same car. As it is now, I have tried that in many cars. You will have a simple green steering wheel, which will be visible in the instrument cluster. Or if you have a head-up display, you can see it there as well. But when you go, for example, as you described today, in a curve where the system actually say, okay, I'm not able to be automated anymore, I go to the assisted mode, you will just see simply the green steering wheel will disappear. But there will be no sound, no warning, no anything to the driver to let him or her know that now he has actually lost the assist from the system. Have you any visions or ideas about this for the future? Should there be a more clear, a simple, clear warning to the driver that he or her is now the only one who drives the car?
Well, let Richard do this, because he's standing up here, no chair, he has to...
Well, I think for level 2 systems, if the mic is on...
I think it is.
Yeah,
yes.
It is? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So for level 2 system, it's relatively simple. You are as a driver in control So in principle, the green or orange or red steering wheel shouldn't make a difference. You should feel whether you're supported, yes or no. For level 3, I'm with you, and I think the key element to be able to know at the vehicle side whether the driver is able to take control is driver monitoring. So you need this additional element of technology for a vehicle to make a decision when A, can I give control back? Is the driver in the loop? Can I do this? The timing, is, of course, is a huge discussion we always have on how much time do you want this transition to be taken. So that element is certainly something that we are developing not only for automated driving but also as a standalone driver support system. And that's a key element to make the next step to more automation, because the car has to know what the state of the driver is to do more automation.
Okay. Yeah. You had this. It's coming from your left.
My name is Victor. I'm from Sicily. One question to what you mentioned already, Richard, in terms of the naming in your presentation, that you strive to put the assisted word into L2 systems. So my question is to the panel: how do you see standardizing names, and a step further, how do you see standardizing features in terms of performance capabilities, speed range, and so on, all those aspects you Richard mentioned in your presentation? Thank you.
Well, I think in terms of names, I think one of the things that we've called out for is for manufacturers to use the term assistance in their sales and marketing, and also in the system that the driver sees. And some vehicle manufacturers, when you switch the system on, it does say assistant, pilot assist or something like that. I think even that is helpful because you get the parlance with the user. They understand this is an assistant system, because we've got to get it down to very binary levels for the consumer to understand this is an assistant system. Just showing a green steering wheel, they don't really understand what that means. Does that green steering wheel mean I've got the steering a bit, I'm supporting, I'm helping you, I'm doing it completely? So that's not very clear. So although the whole HMI thing is very contentious, vehicle manufacturers understandably want to own that because that's part of their DNA. I think having more commonality between the vehicles would be helpful, that we understand that a green steering wheel is this big and it means this. And we've got commonality, a natural evolution in commonality, where, you know, wipers are on the left or wipers are on the right, and lights are on the left, you know, with indicator stalks. I think we need to move towards that. And I think the vehicle manufacturers are exploring that, but we need to understand we have to take the consumer with us on that journey. Even us up here, we're talking about these levels. We say, forget levels, it's assisted, automated, autonomous, and then in an argument on a stage, we then start talking about L2 and L3 and L4, and that's just not helpful. We aren't very good at it ourselves, let alone the engineers. So we have to put this back into the consumer space, make it very simple.
Anyone else want to add? No? Okay, yes, good, just livening up, that's good.
There's a microphone.
Oh, okay.
Stole the microphone first.
You stole, all right, you jumped the gun. He's ahead of the game here.
Yeah, so I was a little bit quicker. So Thorsten Ehrenhardt from Audi. Yeah. There's just one short comment. It's not especially a question. I just want to underline the statements just made by Reinhard Kolker and also Richard. For the discussion with automation, we have to differentiate here on the roles between the driver and the system. So for the assistance, it's always the cooperation, while in the automated mode, it's the vehicle. So insofar, this scenario, as you mentioned, okay, I drift out of the lane and then I get this takeover and I have to take over. This is just not allowed to happen in automation. So because, and that's also in the definition of the levels, from level 3 onwards, the driver always, or the system has to give the driver enough time to take over the driving task. Right. So the spontaneous giving over is not a scenario which is allowed to happen. Thank you.
Okay. Maybe what I'll do is take a group, because then I don't want you to be late for lunch. So,
And in the meantime, I just want to underline this. This is a typical misunderstanding of level 3. Level 3 doesn't mean that the system immediately hand over the steering wheel back to the driver. This is impossible. The driver is doing something different, and therefore in level 3 we need enough lead time to bring the driver back. And this will be another human-machine interaction assessment in the future for Euro NCAP as well. How good this is handled.
Great. So now the gentleman in front, and then there's now, I like the race going on here for the microphone. It's
Yes, thanks.
it's
I'm
competitive guys in the automotive industry.
Thanks. I'm Chris Hottentot from ANWB. I wanted to go on the question was asked here. Shouldn't we do something about all those marketing names? Because people don't know what to expect anymore. In the Netherlands, there was a research by Connecting Mobility. They asked people, what do you have in your car? And most of the people don't even know anymore they have systems in their car. And if we talk about brands like Mercedes, which calls adaptive cruise control Distronic Plus, people don't know what Distronic Plus is. Another example, there was a brand that called a system Park Assist, which had the beeps in the camera, but there was also a brand called it Park Assistant. The Park Assistant was something different because it's the Park Assist Pilot. If we want to make it clear to people what systems they have in the car, shouldn't we have uniform names so they know what they can expect and how it works? I know brands don't like it because they want to have their marketing uniqueness, but you have to do something, and maybe also how it works, because we saw it in the presentation. The ACC that works only to 90, or the ACC works to 130. People don't know anymore how their systems work and where the limitations are. So it needs to be clear, I think, to people what to expect to their vehicle.
Key point. Okay, and then now there's the other microphone guy.
Claudio Nervi from FCA. I actually have two questions. I hope to be quick. First one would be that the system that we are testing today are all level 2. What is your view on higher levels? So level 3 today is not even legal in most European countries. If you make in 5 year time, will level 3 replace completely level 2, or it will be, I don't know, a smooth transition? And the second question would be about the validation of this system. When we are in the safety side, we have the crash test. When do an assisted driving system is valid? When it generates, when it is perfect, then we never have them, or just when it drives better than a human being? Thank you.
Okay, who wants to take that? Richard?
Maybe taking your second question on the assessment side, I think we acknowledge as Euro NCAP that what we do for passive safety is crash testing, what we do for active safety is track testing. I think we need a third element for the future to be able to assess these more automation systems in a more robust way, and the only thing we can do there is to go to virtual testing. To expand the scope, you can simply test a vehicle on a test track in some very limited scenarios without increasing the cost rapidly, but to have a thorough, robust assessment of these vehicles, you need to expand the scenarios you're putting them through, which means, in our opinion, that you need to go in terms of virtual testing elements. And how it's done, don't ask me yet, but I think this is a part that we acknowledge should have to be included in the future.
If I could just address the first question from the gentleman here. I think we're starting that journey today with a common language. We have decided on language descriptors for functionality. Whatever the vehicle manufacturer says, we are at least translating that. So at least there's a way for the consumer to understand Distronic Plus, what does that actually mean? Oh, it means ACC. Daimler might not like that, but we're going to have to use a common set of language. And the more communication we can do with that common language, the better. And hopefully manufacturers will in the future, and we have seen a little bit of this with AEB, move towards common descriptors. I mean, I think in the United Kingdom, we've got 56 different names for an AEB system. So if you ask the consumer, do you have AEB? Apart from, I think, one manufacturer, Jaguar Land Rover, who used AEB, they'd say, no, I don't have that on my car, whereas actually most of them do. So I think we can form and provide guidance there with a common language that we stick to.
Andre, you wanted to?
Yes, and this was the first question of the second gentleman here. you're asking, is level 3 better than level 2? Is level 4 better than level 3? This is not why we introduced the levels for our internal engineering discussion. It is just a description who is responsible and how the driving task is shared. And you will see in the future cars which have more than one level. The level is depending on the operational design domain. That means in which situation you can use it. And maybe in a very simple traffic situation, you will have higher levels of automation because the machine can deal with these simple situations. And in a more complex situation, maybe you will have lower levels of automation, only assisted. Yeah? Important is that the human-machine interaction clearly show what you are doing, and that you will not end in a mode confusion, that you have an overtrust or you are misleaded what the car can do for you.
Yes. Okay. We have the most appalling gender balance problem at this event. Is there any female member of the... I mean, women, we know women are actually the decisive car buyers. We know they're better drivers. Yay! So, thank you.
Yeah.
You're doing a big service to this event.
Well, yeah. I will not comment on that.
You're from where?
I'm from the Netherlands. My name is Ilse Harms.
Yeah.
I was, first of all, I was very pleased with the presentation here and with the work that your NCAP has been doing to see all the progress on road safety and also on the ADAS systems. But I was wondering from there, because we are really into increasing road safety, and I was wondering if how the automotive industry would feel about not just increasing systems that are not just focus on the systems that actually increase road safety, but also focus on the safe use of systems, which I mean is that, for example, you would have a car equipped with all your road safety stuff, make it very safe, but then you have to tune with your air conditioning, which demands a lot of your effort because it's very difficult. And then this car still would receive like 5 safety stars. I was wondering how would you comment on that?
Could I'd just like to add, it's a fantastic question. And I was a sad demise of, oh my God, I'm going to forget his name, the Fiat boss, Marciani. Just a few months before he died, I got a very impressive interview with him. But it disturbed me quite a bit because he was talking about young people not being interested in buying cars anymore. And the whole pitch was, we're going to have to make cars as attractive as iPhones, et cetera, et cetera. And what I got from that was, wow, we're going to enter a whole new era of massive distraction. And from all these other technologies, which is basically your question. I think it's a very, very good point. So.
Well, I mean, just to pick up on that, and I don't want to do any selling, but if you have a look at one of the Daimler products out here, it's got a very good voice actuation system. So I think vehicle manufacturers are recognizing the problems with the HMI, that they're trying to sell new technology. I mean, a lot of vehicles you drive along, they seem to have got iPads in the middle. And obviously there's a connection with a new generation who expects to see that sort of level of control with a vehicle. But there is a problem, these things are confusing. There's lots of icons, they're trying to squeeze everything into that one thing. And I think there is a problem with distraction. And obviously, with these level 2 systems, I'm not supposed to use that term, but with these assisted driving systems, there's almost an encouragement for the driver to use them because they can use assisted driving systems, which probably means it's safe for me to now start pressing these buttons here. So there is a clear challenge there that we've got. It's better that they're using the assisted driving system than not, but that is a challenge. So I think voice actuation and things like that, I think it will develop. But you're right, we do need to start looking at the human-machine interface issues.
I think there's also 2 ways to this problem that you are describing here. if you've got a proper driver monitoring system that looks at you and knows that you are inattentive playing with your air conditioning, one of the last steps in our roadmap for driver monitoring systems would be that the AEB or FCW systems would be set to a more sensitive mode because they know they are doing something else than driving. So there's either prevent it from happening in the first place, which is not a bad idea at all. So I'll welcome any proposal from the Netherlands to include this in Euro NCAP. But on the other side, we are working at the avoiding or acknowledging that people may be distracted and try to have the vehicle compensate for this in the performance.
You have a device that slaps the driver, you know.
Maybe.
I think we're sort of, the noise is quite, there may be one or two people trying to jump the queue there, so I think we should wind up. So I'm going to use my chairman's prerogative just to raise one issue, maybe a quick response, which is, and this is really all about assisted level 2 world that we're actually in, is the thing that really worries me is that we're entering an age now where we know that a lot of people's first decisions about vehicle purchases are now on the internet, they're not in showrooms. And that when you go to showrooms, you can have pretty patchy experiences in terms of what you're being told about these vehicles. Yeah. I mean, anecdote of my own story, some years back in the early days of assistance, I remember trying to get a vehicle when my son had learned to drive and fighting to get ESC as a standalone, not bundled thing. That was one issue. Anyway, going around the showrooms, being told by one manufacturer, oh, you don't want that, it's a sport mode device. And the quality of salesmanship is pretty poor in this sector. And of course, it's partly franchise and partly independence and all the rest of it. But how are we going to tackle, and this is a here and now problem, the really proper quality salesmanship? And we don't want the salesman saying, oh, of course, madam, that's level 2, 3, whatever. So I think there's a huge opportunity for collaboration here, very much like the 3-stage rocket that Reinhard was talking about. But there are you then run up against the marketing guys who don't like harmonized names because you want to have your branded special gizmo. So how are we going to tackle that? Because it seems to me that is the big story in front of us. It's a salesmanship communication challenge.
That's a quite weird challenge. So we made surveys years ago, and in these surveys we identified if a dealer explains to the buyer of a car, to the consumer, how the car is working, the probability that this consumer is coming back to exactly this brand is raising significantly. And therefore, I came back in my discussions with German manufacturers and importers, and I told them, why don't you explain to the consumer much more, because it's a benefit for you, it's loading your brand, and people will come back and say, I did get an explanation. And the answer was, believe me, our dealers get below 200 euros per contract, and we do not have the time to explain anything for that. And I see no solution. I see a problem, but I don't see a solution, because the willingness of manufacturers to to use this time, to use this benefit, which they could, is not visible for me. Maybe that's a chance for us as consumer protection organization to get more into describing these technologies. That's what we do. But it's on the other side, I cannot say that it's our business to explain the car of a specific brand to the consumer. Yes, we will do so if it's an ADAC member, so to say. But it's what the dealer should do.
Contracts are.
Yeah.
For ADAC membership.
Well, anybody else want to respond to that? What is an OEM perspective on your
I think,
dealership?
I wouldn't fully agree to those statements. I think what you described as the generation who takes more care about, is my vehicle interacting like an iPhone with me instead of a normal vehicle attribute, etc. I think what we did as an OEM, and I think is potentially an example, and I'm the only one representing the industry at the moment here, is exactly to use channels the next generation is using. That means we are introducing, and I'm fully with you that what you will experience later outside is getting more and more complicated to really convey the message about the capability of a system. And in the showroom, it's quite difficult to convey the message. That means all of our marketing material we established and we introduced is available on YouTube about how our features are working, as an example. And I think we are going this route, and we know the challenges, but at least we try our best to convey the right message about the capabilities and to exactly what was mentioned here, to make it simple. We use umbrella name where we fit the technologies in. It's Copilot 360 in our case, but it's a combination of a couple of different elements. And that is how we think to convey the message easier.
And you'd be willing to do that on a more standardized, shared basis?
Yeah, I think, of course, we have to differentiate from competition is definitely a goal, but I can remember when we started more than 10 years ago, this AEB story, we had a name like CMBB, Collision Mitigation by Braking, then Collision Mitigation System, and at the end we have migrated to a common term AEB now, and I'm expecting for systems like highway assist we are experiencing today, a similar story will happen over time.
Great. Well, I'd like to, on behalf of everyone, if we could all thank our extremely interesting and dynamic panelists, and Richard as well. So if you could all give them a round of applause. Right, so we're ending just ahead of time. I don't know if there are any technical announcements. I'll hand over to Michiel. Yeah.
Yes. So thanks again for everybody to be here today. The demos are just starting in a minute, as well as lunch, of course. Thanks again to David for facilitating, for all our speakers today and for the panelists. As I said, lunch is next door, but before that, I just like quickly give the floor to Andy Rigling from ADAC, who will explain to you a little bit more in detail what the demos are all about. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear ladies and gentlemen. This is probably the best part to announce the lunch and the demos. I'm a bit sorry about the noise we had next door, because everyone who's preparing to make the demos possible for you already had lunch. So they are, for the next 3 hours, yours, and you will hopefully have nice demos. You will find in your conference folder a map of the different stations we have outside there. And during the demos, you will have the possibility to experience today's systems and possibly also their limits under safe conditions. The demos, they will lead you from steering comfort and steering effort. We heard Richard today about how to balance between driver and car, over comfort functions like ACC, experience them yourselves, up to emergency braking. Just please make sure you have on your name badge this sticker. Then you're also allowed to drive the car yourself in one of the labs. If you're not registered yet for the driving yourself, you will find our colleagues outside at the counter.
You have to sign your life away. That's the.
You have, probably, hopefully not. You will sign, you have a lot of fun. The cars, they will pick you up from the counter outside, so please don't go to the cars, they will come to you, and that's where we're going to open the hangar for you, have the counter outside there, and when the car picks you up, the driver is one professional driver from the manufacturer, explaining the system and explaining the track to you. For the first lap, you will not drive yourself, you will be on the driver's seat or in the back seat. And then in a second lap, you might be able, if you're interested, to drive the car yourself and drive through a few stations yourself. There are the options to bypass some, it's a very big screen, to bypass some of the other A-B sections. The manufacturer will explain to you, and some of the Euro NCAP members also might be available to give you some explanations on the tests. For your safety, please stay in the zone in front of the hangar. You will notice that there are no pedestrians allowed on the test track. There is another option. We have highway drives. We have 4 cars available that will do drives on a real road. When you want more time to experience the system on the highway, please go out of the main entrance. There are 4 cars starting from there. All the other 10 test cars on the test track are starting from the test track side. And if you're just interested in watching, for example, one of the demo stations like the AEB station nearby, we have a big bus outside. It's a yellow bus that can take up to 7 people, and this will do like a safari tour. It will just go around over the track and watch the demo stations from outside, not from inside the test car. Yeah. To save time, to make it more efficient, the lunch and the demo now will start in parallel. Everyone involved in the demos already had lunch, so they're good for you. And there is no fixed order, so please choose yourself which station you want to have first. And I'm very happy to invite Mikil, David, and Pierre Castin to do the first test ride, to make a start on the test track
we don't get our
with the
lunch?
first car.
Okay.
We'll keep some of it for you later on.
The sacrifices we make for Euro NCAP.
There will be enough left and the coffee.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your attention and your attendance, and have exciting demos on this very, very nice afternoon. It could also be snowing now in October, but we have the best weather we could have been going for. Yeah. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you.